The living room, where the family meets to discuss issues, any issue which may be bothering one of the family members. That's what we do each and every Tuesday on WAC 90.1 FM with Ricardo Mitchell and DJ Aaron 868. We have casual conversations on serious topics, from sports to culture, mental health to economics, relationships to life lessons. Join us each and every Tuesday on WAC 90.1 FM. The living room, casual conversations on serious topics.
It is currently 6 p.m. here in Trinidad and Tobago. I don't know what time it is where you are, but I'm glad to know you're locked on to the true nation station, WACK 90.1 FM, where we are culture crazy, all right? Now, let's kick this off as we always do. Must give thanks and praises to the Almighty for granting us the gift of life and seeing another day. No matter what time of day it is, you must always give thanks, all right? And secondly, I must say thank you to, first and foremost, the original inhabitants of Trinidad and Tobago, the Taínos and the Calinagos, because we all know that Columbus lied. And this is a lesson that we need to teach in our schools, all right? But not only them, we are going to, say thank you to our brother in music, that's Tony Prescott. And the P this week stands for principal. Well, more like principle, because we are getting into the principal issues in this matter, because we are taking it directly to the schools right now inside the Addressing the Violence series. Thus far, we have addressed media and we have addressed mind. All right. So we are getting into the schools right now. And I want to take this opportunity to introduce our guest, Ms Titus, better known as Miss, all right? A friend of Ricardo, and she has volunteered her time to join us inside the living room tonight, all right? So, you know how we do. This is yours truly, DJ Aaron 868. I'm always great and I'm never late, alongside my bro with no fro, Ricardo Mitchell, all right? He's just a couple of minutes late, so let him in as well as let our guest in. And while I do all that work, let me also give you a weekly interlude musical intro coming down from the sweet voices of Vorish.
Welcome to the living room. Welcome to the living room. Welcome to the living room. Welcome to the living room.
Thanks to Vorish for our signature intro. I know, Aaron, you're a huge fan of that Welcome to the Living Room, and also the guy who did the video. So thumbs up and congratulations on that. You're improving. I like what it is I see going on here. And let me be on my best behavior, because Miss is in the classroom this evening. Miss is in the classroom. So if you were hearing noise outside, it was Aaron. I was quietly revising my work. I know he will probably say it was me. I know you will probably say it was me, but as a teacher, you could definitely see which of the two of us would be more prone to mischief and educate accordingly. So welcome to the living room, Ms Titus. Maria, how are you doing it this evening?
Maria, Ms Titus is one of my students. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you here. And Aaron, I know it's been a while. Since you sat in our classroom as a student.
No, it hasn't actually.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey,
Remember, I'm currently back in school, and we have some in-person classes.
You're not lecturing?
Not any course that I'm doing. No.
So you're a student on one side and you're an instructor on the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, a man of many hats and little hair. I like that about you. You're versatile.
I think that's the reason why I don't have hair.
Too many hats.
Yeah.
So, despite the lighthearted entry we've had thus far, we're here to discuss some serious matters. You know that we have the series addressing the violence, and we've recognized that despite the gender-based violence, domestic violence, the violence in schools, the incidents of violence, including our protective services. I don't want to call any particular branch of the protective services, but we need to approach this from a holistic. Yes, Aaron. We know the video you're talking about with the event where the officers were deterring the two young gentlemen. But as we had last week, we had our legal.
You just sell it out by saying officers.
Pardon? There are fire officers, prison officers, and police officers, sir. Though you can't paint me in a corner this hour. Not with that cheap paint you have there. But we had Colin the Noon, attorney at law, last week, helping us refine and define some of these legal positions. Prior to that, we had Ms. Susan Shepherd, senior editor and multimedia professional, who is helping us understand the role of the media as it relates to just the reporting of news and the way that we perceive it. Right. And following that, we had Ms. Brittany Cahen, who's a forensic psychologist, who is helping us understand the mental health aspect of violence and its impact on both the victims and the criminals or the offenders themselves.
Right.
Now, we getting close to home, even closer to home.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, because we've noticed over the recently concluded term, incidents, reports of violence. Many of these were captured on, I don't want to say film, but were recorded visually. And there was a report here on how many suspensions did they say there were? I think it was 1,100 or 1,300 or something like that.
I think somewhere between 11 and 14, somewhere in that region.
Yeah. Right. So we've had a tough first term back out of school, and we figured to continue getting insight from the professionals on the front lines of these different arenas. We're going to engage several teachers over the next couple of weeks. First and foremost is Ms. Titus. She has agreed to sit with us in the living room. She's speaking as a parent and from her experience as a teacher. However, she is not representing any specific institution's perspective or the ministry. Right? This is as a citizen. She's having a discussion with other citizens in the living room. So, Iran, I know you like to start with your $1 million topics.
No, I actually have a very simple question to start tonight's program with. I just want to clarify here. Firstly, are camera phones allowed in school?
No, they are not. It is still the ministry's policies. Students are not supposed to have camera phones in school. However, because of the online transition, and a number of students had to invest because that is how they were able to adapt to the online modality. A number of students do have their camera phones, but the ministry's policy is very clear where they are supposed to be turned off. That's it in a nutshell. The policy has not changed.
Okay, I just want to make that point clear as the first point as we start tonight's proceedings. Now we get down to the meat of tonight's matter, right? And the reason why I started with that question is because a lot of the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago and even the wider world have been made aware of the instances of school violence through recordings on camera phones, which have been shared, reshared, and sometimes remixed on social media, right? So I want to ask firstly, is it that what we see via these posts is just the tip of the iceberg, or this is the only instances that are being, that are happening within our school system?
What I have to say, Aaron, it is really just of the iceberg, and really it is a small fragment of what is taking place in this system. Now, I want to make this clear with regards to the use of camera phones. Although the ministry has its policy, citizens have to understand that there's only so much that ministry can do and schools can do with regards to enforcement of policy, because every institution does try. But then you cannot police it well 24/7. There are going to be the moments in terms of the break, going into the washroom, stores, and all these different areas and avenues that you have no control over. Right after school, and that kind of thing. But with regards to the information that has been put out there on social media, it is only a fragment. And we have to be very clear, and I want us to understand that there is a difference with saying there has been an increase in school violence as opposed to what has been would be violent behavior. And violent behavior can take different forms. Citizens might only be seeing the child who lashes out via fighting physically, but all of the other aspects where they display, and let me not use the term violent behavior, maybe cause for concern, areas that are behavior that is cause for concern, those things are not always shared with public.
Right. Oh, Ricardo, just allow me for this second here.
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of the ministry's policy with the no camera phones.
Mm-hmm.
School books, the cost of school books is high. The cost of uniforms is high. So to ask a parent who will have to buy a phone for a child, and we know technology now, there are hardly any camera-less phones out there.
Which is a truth.
So to ask a parent to buy a phone for home and then a phone for school is a stretch.
Mm-hmm.
So there needs to be some level of revision of that no camera phones in school policy, but also to find a way to make it work.
Aaron, and that's the difficult part of it. I hear you, but there needs to be the revision of the policy. And I anticipate that the ministry will revisit their policy. But then, like I said, the challenge remains, how do you continue to enforce policy decisions where there's only so much control, much monitoring that can take place? And we would all like to believe that all of our students are responsible and understand what rules are given, but we were all children, and we know that they don't always do as they are told. And that's where we have problems. Because of course, there are also policies guide if you use it incorrectly or you do what you're not supposed to do with the device, then there are consequences.
And speaking of consequences,
Mm-hmm.
We know that in our days, yes, Ricardo, I'm saying our days because it would have been established, it would have still been existent then. Corporal punishment would have been existent in our days. So you did something and it'd be reprimanded, right? Now, in terms of disciplinary measures now, what kind of measures are used for the children who step out of line in general?
Well, it depends on the infraction, because we do have the discipline matrix that the ministry has provided, and as educators, that is what we are guided by. So depending on the infraction that has occurred, then you know what is supposed to be the appropriate punishment as guided and as given by the ministry, right? And they would have, I do believe it would have been during this term, they would have updated, they would have revisited their policy, so that there was a new proposal sent out to all schools throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, principals had to disseminate, and I anticipate by the start of the new academic year, it is going to be fully enforced, right? So that is how we determine what is appropriate.
And my last question, to now allow Ricardo to come into the program, is this document public, or is it within the school system alone?
As far as I'm aware, Iran, it's not public. It is within the school system, because remember, they're still asking for feedback and suggestions. It is a draft document. Don't know if after it has been accepted, all changes and suggestions have been implemented, that the ministry will consider making it known to the public. All right?
I'm good for a little while there, Ricardo.
No, you've been good for a long time, Aaron. Don't sell yourself short.
No, I'm talking about question-wise.
Oh, all right. You see, this is what has happened when I try to, build you up now. It's just, but I listen. My heart's so close to this topic because yes, I don't have kids, but I have several nieces, nephews, godkids. Done work with the San Fernando Boys RC Past Students Association. We've done the mentorship program for the young ladies.
Done or doing, Ricardo?
Well, I am doing, but I also have done. So I guess technically I was correct. I've done work with the Sapphire Miriam Foundation, with the teen and adolescent girls across the Caribbean. Mentorship has become a part of my life. I don't know how well suited I am to it, because apparently I'm not the gentlest when it comes to delivery. I mean, oh gosh, Aaron, you could have.
Sorry.
You got a fake nod self. But the thing is, I'm learning that being present is one of the most important things that you could be. The other things you could learn along the way. In terms of the learning that has happened this first term, what do you...
Which first term exactly? As
the first term since...
year 2021, 2022, this third term?
Nah, the first term, which was the third term.
Okay, this term.
Right? This first term back out, the in-person schooling. Now, I have a couple points to pick, but what do you think is the most important thing that we've learned being present in this last term?
Being present in this last term, the most important that we've learned is that the system, education system, the system that we have now is radically different. And radically different because our charters have come back in a system where it remained quote unquote static, but the experiences that they had over the 2 years changed them. So they cannot readily fit back into a system that has not accommodated the changes that they experienced over the 2 years. So Iran asked me a while ago about the use of the cell phones, and we spoke about the recording and what is privy to the public. And I'm saying that one of these things that we see emerge, that our children lashed out. And our children lashed out on all levels. And we, as educators, did not adequately prepare. I don't think anybody could have anticipated how much our children suffer, how much our children hurt, how much harm was done to them during the 2 years. You see, we take for granted that children are young and they can adapt, but we forget that children feel deeply. And because we didn't take into account the emotions that they went through during the 2 years, and all of the different factors, the psychosocial factors, the socioeconomic factors, the having to navigate in a technological world where we didn't necessarily have the experience. And then you come back into a system where it goes back to almost talk and talk and the same contacts, expect that there was going to be clash. And I think that's one of the biggest things we've learned, if not the most important things this thing, that we did not prepare for the children who were permanently changed every 2 years. Did not prepare for the young people that we're going to meet in our classroom.
Yeah, over the past couple of years, I acknowledge that a lot of us were learning as we were doing. But I struggled very, very early when it registered that you would have 6, 7, and 8-year-olds with email addresses who would have to sit in front of a device and log in and check their assignments, check correspondence, and then spend a significant amount of time responding accordingly and fulfilling tasks to submit by end of day or at a set deadline. They have to pay adults to do that and call it a job.
I just want to interject on their own because they had parents who had to be out working. So it is not a case of parents didn't want to be there, but they were tasked with such responsibility. They were asked to take responsibility for their own learning, like you rightfully said, at 5, 6, 7, 8, and then meet deadlines. When were they taught to do?
And a lot of the parents who were expected to support didn't know how to do it themselves. A lot of the teachers who were issuing and receiving work had to learn how to use computers, had to learn how to use these learning platforms and programs. So you would have a student in the early stages who would have to learn to navigate 3 different systems based on the teacher's preference.
That's right.
We pay adults to do this type of thing and call it our job and demand it of children, and then surprised when, from a culture that would take 6 days to go on a boat ride, we surprised.
Hey.
What is? Tell me it's not a fact. All right then.
The views expressed by Ricardo Mitchell are the views of him and him alone, and not the views of DJ Iran 868 and of WAC 90.1 FM.
Noted. Right? And what I'm saying is that we're surprised when kids are finding reasons to not attend classes. We're surprised when kids aren't doing the work when they're unsupervised. We are surprised, and this is assuming that they even have access to what it takes to get the work done, but that's a whole other story, right? But we are surprised that kids who could look up answers before they reply can't respond appropriately in a written exam where they don't have these open book opportunities, right? What I'm saying is that we got this horribly wrong. We are looking at a remedial session over the course of the Java, the July-August vacation, the summer holidays, right? The school break.
We don't have summer here.
We don't have summer here, but we have summer holidays and proms, Iran.
Have July-August vacation.
That's what we have.
Yes.
So we're not in a global village. We're not connected to the world. We're not. Anyway, you know what, Aaron? We will continue that particular conversation. But what I'm saying is that these kids, these children, right, forced into very adult roles and responsibilities with a technological advancement, without a lot of the guidance that they would have needed to navigate this thing 5 and 10 years and 20 years later down the road. I'm curious as to what we thought was going to happen when we take a child from a space where they may or may not have an adult over the shoulder, where just in a school shirt, they have all this elbow room, they have the fridge right there, they could go and get a snack, they have the bathroom there, they could just run off and go. What did we think would happen after 2 years of having that level of autonomy, when we would chuck them back into our classroom where it's 2 or 3 to a desk in an enclosed room where they're under constant supervision and expected to respond yes sir, no sir, when for the last 2 years they had to have the mics muted until they were asked to reply, so they could do what they want and say what they want, play the Roblox and a Minecraft. What did we think was going to happen? So we have a remedial session coming up over the next couple of weeks, but why wasn't there a reorientation prior to sending them back into the school? I'm just asking what y'all think about it.
I'll tell you what, Ricardo. The ministry's initiatives and the ministry's policies are always well intended, right? Their directives are always well intended. And I do applaud them in terms of, yes, we had to get back out there because they also acknowledge that a number of our students were not getting the kind of education that they needed to get online. So I do understand in terms of their thrust, we have to get them back into the system as quickly as possible. And like I said, well intended. And I mean, we have to remember that in terms of the challenges of the Ministry of Education also face, because we all had to just radically adjust in the midst of a pandemic. And I'm saying that to say this, intentions are always good and the intentions are well-meaning. But because first might have been to get back, because on one hand, you don't want trying to lose anymore, because you understand that there's no way you're going to be able to make up the learning deficit, and the longer you leave them in the online system, the wider the gap gets. Hence their reason for let's see how quick we can get them back into the system. Yet, there were steps missed. And there were steps missed, I think, because we've never been here before. Nobody knew, nobody could anticipate. But I do believe Like you said just now when you said it, Lucy, this is our first term. We've learned a lot of lessons, painful lessons, hard lessons from this first term. And I'm saying this is still not the first term. It is really September, beginning of the academic year 2022-2023. And I say that because that is when we are going to have all students in from all levels at the beginning of the year. Because remember, we came back in incrementally. And then when you think of secondary schools, you're going to have full complement forms 1 to 6, because this still 6s are out, 5s are out. It's still not really a first term. The first term is ready from September. And I am hoping that because of lessons that we will have learned, because everybody didn't have to have the experience to learn the lesson. You could learn the lesson based on other person's experiences and based on what other persons said. That going forward in September, that we could put better plans, better orientation programs in place, better systems in place to cater for the emotional intelligence of our students, so that the backlash that we saw this term will not be going forward. Well, it's not lost. But we also have to commit as stakeholders at every level of the education system, because we also have to understand as a society, educators can't do it alone. Ministry of Education can't do it alone. Parents can't do it alone. Students can't do it alone. The NGOs can't do it alone. Until we have a collaborative approach where everybody is working towards the same vision and the same goal, which is to ensure that truly no child is left behind. Until we work towards that, then we spin in top and more. Like I said, all is not lost. This was a teaching term, and I say that loosely. It was a teaching term and a learning term to better plan going ahead.
I will, I will take that, because intentional or not, this past term was the reorientation. I am curious though, because it actually leads a point about whose responsibility it is to get this correct. But I'm also wondering, sure.
Whose responsibility is this to get it correct? And I'm going back to what I just said, Ricardo. It cannot be done single-handedly. It's always wonderful to point fingers and blame the ministry or blame the educators or blame the parents who are not doing and who just see school as a daycare. Is wonderful. But every time we waste time pointing fingers, the only thing that we accomplish is we hurt our children. We hurt the generation coming up. We hurt the leaders of the future leaders of the country. We hurt the game changers. We hurting the innovators. We hurting the heartbeat of the nation. So let's move away from who is responsible. That's why I'm saying it needs to be a collaborative thrust. If you do your part and I do my part and we all trying to do our parts, we could fix this thing. We don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, reinvent the system. Just plug the weak areas. And the only way to plug that is for everybody to acknowledge, I have a role. I have a part to play. And if we play our parts and play to the best of our ability, then we could see things we never saw in Trinidad and Tobago. We could see a change within the next couple of years, but it begins with us. The power is in our hands, we just haven't been using it. We're too busy playing blame game, and the blame game not getting us anyway.
I want to apologize.
I'm not going to say, dear Ricardo, what kind of question is that? Oh my gosh.
I want to apologize.
Ricardo, forgive me for the
No. Actually, I love that answer to that question, because it brings me to a point that I wanted to make inside this episode, right? The education system is not just the school. The education system comprises the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
It's a synergistic approach that is needed for progress to happen. Yes, Ricardo, he's a big word there. And it's not the big word everybody just look forward to me using.
Yeah, we had to for that still.
Yeah, right? We need everyone to contribute. We need the sum of the parts to be more than or equal to the sum of the whole. Right, guys? So, and I myself will attest to this. If I see a young, there are many children that live on my street, right? And if I see a child that was supposed to be in online school outside in that time, I ask him, what are you doing? Initially in the stages when everyone was home and they were doing online schooling, I willingly gave my Wi-Fi password to some of the children who were living on the street who did not have Wi-Fi. Now I had to change the password, but right? It takes all of us to ensure that at that time, the children were able to attend classes online. But now as the children are back in school, we also need to assist in the socialization process, because let's face it, even some adults have faced difficulty in re-socializing to go back to work. So the same problems that children are facing and are going to face, we the adults are also traversing the same issues. And as you rightfully said, I'll say Ms Titus for this one. As you rightfully said, Ms Titus, you don't need to just learn from someone else's experience. So the same experience we as adults are taking to re-socialize in the workplace, let's pass on that knowledge to the children to re-socialize in the schools. And I wouldn't say school system, in the schools, because the school is the building where they all congregate.
Yeah, that leads to what I wanted to ask before when I accidentally triggered the responsibility aspect. But the teachers are generally adults. And thus far, the adults we engage in have been primarily human.
Have been?
Bear with me.
Okay.
Some of the humans in the past 2 years have started expressing the challenges that they've faced. Their behavior has not been very human. There are incidences where the same cameras which are not allowed in schools have been capturing teachers with bouts of racism, with bouts of criticism. We seeing that the teachers, as well intended as the majority of them are, some of them are struggling with the mental and emotional and psychological weight of the past 2 years. The children are expected to process this and accept it because it is a figure of authority and they have to listen to miss and so on and so forth. Or sir, as the case may be. What I'm saying is, I acknowledge that there's a human element to a systemic failure that we're witnessing. Is there, or has there been, and I don't know because I'm not a teacher, but has there been any case in point, psychological evaluation of teachers before they re-enter the in-person schooling? Was it something as simple as sitting down for a half hour with each teacher to make sure that they're okay to pick back up the workload that they would be resuming the next week or the next month? What I'm saying is, and again, I know all schools function to a degree with some autonomy, right? But what I'm saying is, who guard the guardians? Who check the teachers to make sure that they were okay to go back into this type of thing? They would have navigated the same losses of family members and earnings in some cases. A lot of them would have had the same trauma, the same psychological oppressions that we all felt about re-engaging our society that could get us sick or killed. What I'm saying is, teachers are human beings, and who checked for the teachers before they say go back out there and get them?
Well, Ricardo, like you rightfully said, every institution is different. And I do anticipate that there would have been systems in place in different institutions. But at the end of the day, we do have access. And I mean, if there were not any official checks and balances in place, there are mechanisms available to educators as to if you feel that your experience has been traumatic or there's been some level of trauma, or you are not prepared, there are ways and means that you can communicate to your principal or a head of department and that sort of thing. Let them know, hear what, I need some support as well. That's the most that I can say on that, because like I said, you're speaking now at the institution level. Because institutions are different, I can't speak to that because your system and space is going to be different.
Right.
What we do have in common is that there are avenues available as to express, I need help.
But absent an incident to highlight this issue, we rely on our level of self-awareness and self-reporting then.
Mm-hmm.
You had to know for yourself, listen, I'm not sure I'm ready for this, and take a measure. But if you don't have that self-awareness, then you might end up in a situation.
But then, Ricardo, you're going back. I have to touch again on what I said.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we're talking about is change the mindset and change the thinking. And I'm saying that goes back to what I said. Has to be collaborative. Because if my colleagues realize, based on how I used to rate before, or even the day before, because something could happen on the morning off. I could have gone to school Monday, Tuesday, fine. And then something happened Tuesday evening that triggered change in behavior on Wednesday. And I may not be cognizant of the fact that my behavior has so changed. But my colleagues are supposed to know me. A head of department is supposed to even, pick up on something is wrong. If a colleague doesn't want to come to you directly, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, just ask Mr. So-and-so and Miss So-and-so if they're all right today, if they need a time out. And that's what I'm saying. It has to be collaborative, because your point, that is a fact. Sometimes you are not aware that you're not coping well, but then those around you might be able to say, let me take over today. Because maybe what the person faced or is facing requires them to have a day or two extra to process and then to come back in. You see, we have to move from the mode of me, myself, and I. And somebody picking up on something wrong doesn't mean that you have to tell them what is wrong. They just realize something is wrong and you are pointed to the person that can help you maintaining confidentiality, maintaining your privacy, and still allowing you to command the respect in the classroom. What's so wrong with that? A while ago when I met you all, the introduction given to me by the both of you, Aaron, he said, Ricardo is your brother, not your friend. What happened to being our brothers and sisters people? That doesn't change at any level. That has nothing to do with education alone.
You see, at the start of 2018, right, on the first show of that year, Ricardo and I would have implored our listeners, both local and international, to be better citizens, right? Last week at the end of the program, I would have read Trinidad and Tobago's national pledge. And I can't remember the exact line. Let me see if I could pull it up while I'm saying this. It's basically saying that we need to be our brother's keeper to ensure the betterment of our country. I'm paraphrasing here, obviously. And I think over the years, in this capitalist world that we live in, the sense of self-survival has taken precedence over us caring for the community. And in order for us to get back to the point that we are speaking of in tonight's show, we need to understand that sometimes to beat capitalism, we need to show them that we as a community have the power to uplift each other and care after each other. I should say care for, sorry.
I hope you're not using this opportunity to initiate any boycotts or anything like that.
No.
Responsibility with our platform.
I will never.
Let's talk about overthrowing capitalism and that type of thing. I know if I'm comfortable with some of them words.
Would you like me to
No.
reiterate?
It's cool. It's already on record, right? When Uncle Kenny listens to the episode and he realizes what it is you're doing, next week I might be hosting by myself. That's okay. But
and you wanted that for a while now, but that's cool.
So this is a collective responsibility here on.
No, but really and in truth and in fact, guys, I really am a firm believer because I know my parents would attest to this, where they say it took a village to raise a child. And I would give special thank you tonight to the village of St. Madeleine. Because I could say any elder in the community could have seen me walking the road with my pants below my waist. The talk, I can't even say the cocktail, the talk I would have get for that. We need to go back to that, because if I tell my neighbor's child, what kind of language is that you listen to in that music? I might get told off from the parent for telling the child that. We need to go back to the days where you would be able to tell somebody, yo, you are too small to be engaging in that kind of conversation. But that's a conversation for parenting as a whole, as opposed to this conversation we have set out for today.
Mm-hmm.
So to get back to the discussion, and I know I asked the question earlier, but I really want to go back into it a little bit. Now, as we established, you're saying it have the matrix, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the discipline matrix. Mm-hmm. Now, outside of that, right? How do you put corrective measures in place within the classroom to ensure maximum participation, as well as maximum, I don't want to say attention grabbing.
Engagement.
Engagement. Thank you very much.
Have you?
You're on?
I know that's a real hard question. Huh?
Not so much of a hard question. It is more that I can only answer to what I do. And every teacher can speak to what they do, so that the techniques that I may employ would speak. And I don't necessarily have any challenges. But then I can't speak to others. And it is not that anything might be wrong with the technique. But again, the dynamic of the classroom might be one where, because there are other underlying issues, it doesn't matter what technique you try, it may be ineffective because the issues within the classroom need to be dealt with at another level. That's why I said that's not an easy question to answer.
No.
I hope you understand.
No, trust me. In sometime earlier in life, I was placed through the OJT system as a teacher in a secondary school in San Fernando and environs.
And you didn't stay?
This story I'm going to give will tell you exactly why I didn't stay, right? And within the dynamic of the classroom, a lot of it was a mixed school, right? A lot of the women or the young ladies that were attending the school were quite attentive in class. But there were some who used to have strong relationship with the male students who would rebel a lot. And I distinctly remember we were preparing for national tests. I'm not sure if that still takes place in secondary school now.
Not at present.
I told them to do a past paper. And what's that?
I was going to tell you, not at present. It will be reintroduced next academic year.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I told her to do a past paper, the class to do a past paper, and she didn't do the homework. I gave her the opportunity to do the homework at the start of the class and make sure and finish it before the class is done. It was a double period. And the kind of fire truck and Mountain Benedict I get from that student, I want to know where they learned that from. And that was the moment when I realized teaching wasn't for me.
Kiran, you've taken us down another road, because you are acknowledging the fact that teaching is a vocation, a calling. Just like I would not have been called to do what you and Ricardo are doing. Calling. And you knew off the bat, I wasn't called this. It's a calling. Because the kind of emotions that you need to have, the kind of requirements, the love, the empathy, the sympathy, the patience, all of the other factors that go into teaching. If you are not called, then you can, let me put it another way. you don't understand how much of a vocation it is, and you go into it because you happen to be qualified, because you need a job, because you think you might be good at something, then inevitably stands to reason that you will encounter certain levels of frustration and challenges because you're born into something that you're not called. Well, even that one alone run because a lot could be said on it.
And I love that answer, and I would take this opportunity to send commendation to all the teachers out there. And I thank you all for the human service that you all are doing for our country, because you all are molding young minds, and not just young minds, sometimes older minds like myself, into becoming better citizens. With that being said, we are getting perilously close to the hour of 7 p.m. here in Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to ask one question to each of you before I give you the opportunity for the closing remarks. Within the schooling system, we each would have had a teacher that would stand out to us. Yeah, I always throw out something like this, Ricardo, right? And because for transparency's sake, we all have had those teachers, right? And I want the listeners to understand that sometimes the teacher that we may call, it might be a listener's mother or grandmother, grandfather or father. Just for a sense of relatability here, for you to understand that it's 2 degrees of separation. Yeah, say 2. We getting smaller and smaller. So Ricardo, if you had one teacher that would have impacted you, who would you say that is?
It's hard for me to pick one teacher because I have a secondary school teacher, I have a primary school teacher, and I have a kindergarten teacher.
Oh Lord,
Right. In the interest of brevity, which is not necessarily one of my strongest points,
we know this.
He's not a big man. In kindergarten, Miss Hackett told me that I had good pronunciation. I loved reading after being encouraged like that. In primary school, is a toss-up between Mr. Alfonso, who was my father friend, and Mr. Allen, who accurately recognized one of my biggest challenges for the rest of my life is, Mr. Mitchell, you're too complacent. And then Miss Sylvia Sau of Presentation College San Fernando, my literature teacher. That woman read a piece of writing I had and defined, and it was the first time I heard it. She was like, Ricardo, you write in what you call stream of consciousness. I was like, what is that? And then I went on to realize that my writing was the way that I thought. And I did not know that there was an explanation, a description of the way that I thought. My identity, who I am as a person, has been shaped by single comments at times from teachers over the span of 15 to 20 years. A single comment was enough to help me at 40 years old look back on my life and see those as checkpoints, anchors. My 3 favorite people in the world, my heroes, are good teachers, good parents, and whoever else happened to catch them third place at that point in time.
Yeah.
I used to say teachers and parents, but it's good teachers and good parents because they have a difference. And what? And Iran? As we're saying there. You know what? In the interest of transparency, I count you as a good teacher. I've learned a lot in working with you and in teaching you, but that's another topic for another time. So yeah, short answer, if I had to pick one, Miss Sau, because her comment helped me establish my identity.
And now I pass that question over to, and now it's a less formal situation, so I'll pass it over to Maria.
I actually have to go to the flip side of Ricardo. I could call out and name all the teachers who would have contributed positively, but it was actually one teacher that I encountered during my secondary school life. That have been the best teacher, but I had to make a decision as to whether or not to accept the negative that somebody said. or if you get the grit and determination to prove them wrong. And as much as what the teacher said and did was not the best thing, it's us. So the teacher that said, I would not pass. Not those who encouraged along the way, was the one that told me I would not, and labored, challenged me, and made something rise up in me that said, I will prove you. Whether it came from a bad place, or whether it came from, because you have those who just say nasty things to break spirits, but then you have those who say nasty things as well, but it is because of what they see in you. And they take that route to get to challenge you. You have those who work the psychology. Let me try the reverse psychology tactic and see how it looks. Because telling it, okay, Ricardo said just now, the teacher said he was complacent. Telling you complacent over and over, not doing anything to you. But if I tell you you'll amount to nothing, something about that somehow might have a different impact. And those are teachers who have, and I know they're students, because you can't do that with any student. But it was that teacher. And after I left school, did what I had to do. The relationship changed between the teacher and I. Kept in contact, would follow up, would actually ask. But as I said, I don't think it necessarily came from a bad place. But it was a case of, I seen something within you, that you're not seeing in yourself. And if I tell you X, Y, Y, by Z, you wouldn't believe me. But that stayed with me. And that's it. I don't want to go into naming names because we have a name, and it's very much alike, only a name names. Somebody might convey my message differently. This one said, he said so by so. That's not the case.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that point, because you know what? Sometimes you have all the ingredients, and what you really need to start cooking is some fire now.
Right.
Yeah. Aaron, you know you can't pose a question without answering it yourself. And just to make it easier for you, you can't call me.
I have three. It's a top three actually. One is somebody would have posted a picture with over the last couple of weeks, Ricardo, or been in a picture with Mr. Wayne Daniel Pitts. Right? He basically unearthed my love for music, right? Then there is Miss Cynthia Limac, who would have further carried me down that road and also added the aspect of theater to it. And there was one university lecturer, I think it's Mr. Sherwin Millett, from when I would have done my first degree. He gave me the confidence to take the ideas, which I always say, because Ricardo speaks of my mad ideas that I have, and convert my mad ideas into principle and reality. And they all would have been responsible for taking, as I said, from the unearthing the talent to putting me there to a place where I could put that talent now into tangible form, be it in reports that I write for work, or the mixes and the presenter that you'll hear on the radio every week. All right? And we just pass it over really quickly to our guest to deliver her closing remarks as we wrap up tonight's show.
So your listening audience, thank you all for being attentive. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me. It really was a pleasure. And I just want to say to everyone, all is not lost, regardless of what is portrayed via the media. I just want us to remember that our young people, our children, like I said, the heartbeat of the nation. This is our future. And they are the ones that are about to change Trinidad and Tobago, shake up things a little bit more. And the only way to see a positive difference and to see the things that we envision and we talk about, because we do a lot of talking, is by working together. If everybody remembers that we have a part to play and we can't do it independent of each other. Children need their parents. Children need their teachers. Teachers need parents to support us. We need the wider society to give financial support. The system, Ministry of Education, needs the stakeholders to get involved, and those who can generate and donate of their time and their expertise. We all work together. We could turn around, and instead of looking at external systems and saying that Finland and all these other countries have the benchmark education systems, we could champion the change in the Caribbean. And I also want to lastly salute every educator out there. It's not easy what we are asked to do. And unless you're in the classroom with the children of this generation, this century, do not understand that what we are meeting is things that we've never encountered before. I am saluting the educator out there. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't give up. I know it gets difficult. I know the task can be daunting. But labors of love are reaping years to come. When you have to go to the doctor and you realize the student on the other side of the desk that says, "Miss or Sir, no charge." Because I remember. I want to say to parents as well to be encouraged, because parents now, my gosh, parenting after you may or may not have lost a loved one, parenting after you would have lost jobs, parenting when inflation is going through the roof and salaries are not increasing, yet the book list is coming next week, and you have children to prepare for September. It's not an easy task. So they have to find the balance of giving them recreation time in the July, August, and all the other things that nobody is considering. The employer might not consider. We're doing it all. Gas prices went up, so cost of transport and the van driver hit you at different costs. Parenting is not easy. But if you continue to invest and make the sacrifices that you brought here, then ask to come. We brought them here. You too will be the proud mother or father. Yes. When your child becomes, whether it is whatever profession, when they become somebody who's born, so go on doing it. Keep on doing it. Sometimes it is tireless, educators and parents. Might be thankless at times. But it is what we will reap if we put in the work now. When we see what happens to our children later on doing what we're doing. And everybody else who has a hand to play in educating or bringing children in one way or another, I really do thank you and keep on doing. So thank you again, Iran and Ricardo, for having me.
I want to say, on behalf of Ricardo and myself, I want to say thank you very much, Maria, for spending this evening in the living room with us. And thank your family as well for giving you the time to spend with us, right? The conversation we had is one which needed to be had, and some of the things which were said needed to be said. As I always end, this is your truly DJ Era 868. I'm always great and I'm never late. I remind you that love is the currency, so spend some today. Let somebody know that you love them, guys. Right? Ricardo?
This is yours truly, Ricardo Mitchell, the social sage and the local stage. Thank you for joining us in the living room. Maria, it has been an absolute pleasure. Feeling to cry after the way that you spoke just now. Your passion resonates with me. Your spirit, it encourages me, but it also saddens me. Because I'm seeing now what we've been missing. I want to thank everyone for giving us the time this evening and for engaging us in this unorthodox approach to addressing the violence. Because we're not just sitting on here talking stats and incidences. Incidences or incidents? I know I went through this the other day. But we sitting on here looking for insight from the people who in front. So God bless. Remember guys, the hourglass is opaque. We don't know how much time remains. So whatever you're doing, be good and stay safe. I think up next we have Mr. Desmond with the big band here on.
Correct. That's right.
So until next time. Oh, and catch Aaron at 2 p.m. on Saturdays for Sweet Soca Saturdays on WAC 90.1 FM.